isolation. We must look at the entire structure or the system that relates to the kidney. And I'm like, what is this I got myself into? This is so much information. I try to condense it as much as I can. So I hope that this will be beneficial to you in this process. And one of my goals, not just for this presentation, but after we cover the entire, well, let's say the channels of elimination. Let's say after we get through them, what I want to do is a practical day. A day when we just do practicals related to each of these channels. Instead of, we're not looking at an entire system yet. But what my thought, I thought as I sit there and Pastor Coco has instructed you guys over the past to pick a disease and start working on it or some disorders, what my thought was is that, I have some assignment which is quite similar on the different body systems, which kind of give a protocol as to how to address this, the disorder of whatever nature. So it would be all the body systems. So then we could divide ourselves in groups, or we don't have enough for a group. Each person will take a body system and start working on maybe a selected disorder of that system and focus on that. And then what I think we should do at the end is do like a presentation. So each person would do a presentation on how their protocol. And then, I think we could even put those together in a booklet form, just put them all together, and each person will get, one of those copies so we could see the work of each other, So that is something that I thought about, So after we're finished this, the practical day is the next thing that will kind of give us an insight as to how to deal with each of these from a practical perspective. Because I think we learn much better when we do practical things. It's not, I'm talking here and I'm pretty sure most of you are not remembering all that I'm saying, or even most of what I'm saying. You might remember one or two things, which, is good. But if we apply what we learn, then it would help us to actually remember much better. I am not sure. This is not coming up. You have any idea why? Is it connected correctly? Okay, maybe this. Yeah, use it. It's just, this didn't come up there. It came up, I think the cord right there needs. It, yeah, I think something like that. Take your time.
Okay, maybe you gotta change this device.
Because I use it, no problem. This is no good.
Thank you. Okay.
That thing was giving stress to her for no reason.
Okay. So let's just pray and invite the presence of the Lord in going through this process. Eternal Father and our God, as we come into your holy presence once more, Lord, we invite your presence among us, Lord. Lord Jesus, I pray for strength. I pray for wisdom and understanding as we together go through this presentation, Lord. Lord Jesus, help us to see the bigger picture. Help us to see the application of what we're learning right now in the time of trouble, which is not so far off, Lord. Lord, we pray for your intervention and your guidance. In your holy, precious name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we're looking at the urinary system today. Now, as we see here, the urinary system is made up of the kidney, the ureter, the bladder, and urethra. And now our goals is to understand or name the parts of the urinary system, discuss the function of each part, and how the urinary system filters and remove waste. And we're going to just look at the disease and some basic herbs of the urinary system. Now, what is the urinary system? Now, the urinary system is also known as the renal system or your urinary tract. Okay, and it consists of the kidneys, as we just said, the ureter, the bladder, and the urethra. Okay, the functions of the urinary system. Now, primary function of the urinary system is to maintain homeostasis. And when we say to maintain homeostasis, what are we saying? It's maintaining a balance, right? So that's one of the primary functions. It regulates fluid and electrolytes. It eliminates waste products, maintain the blood pressure. It's involved in red blood cell production and involved in bone metabolism. So these are some of the primary functions of the urinary system. Now, this is the diagram of the urinary system. And in this diagram, it shows us something. Are we looking here? On which side of your body is your liver? The right side. Is there anything in particular about the right kidneys? If you could. Is lower than the left. The left is a little raised, and because of the presence of the liver, it's just a little bit lower. So those are the kidneys, and from the kidneys we have okay. So the kidneys are paired. They are located. And what's that big word? weighs 4.5 ounces, and I mean, it's average, so it means that it varies. The right kidney, as we said, sit lower in the abdomen due to the liver placement. So an adrenal gland sit on top of each kidney. Okay, this one doesn't show it. So we could see the adrenal gland here on top of the kidney. It looks like a cone. That's something that we also need to be conscious of. So it sits on top of the kidney. And what does the adrenal gland do? What's its function? What system is it a part of?
Part of the endocrine system.
It's part of the endocrine system, and what does it do? Produce what? It sounds just like the name. The adrenal gland it's the fight flight hormone, and it is produced by the kidneys, gives you energy. What you function on when time you no longer, you're playing a game, you're playing a basketball game, or you're playing something, you're presenting a sermon and all your personal energy runs out. What do you survive on?
Adrenal, they keep hormone.
Adrenaline.
So when you are afraid for that, so you're going to take an exam, really, you're going to run to the bathroom to pee, but you won't pee. But this organ, they let you know that you are in trouble. So it pressure the kidney, and the kidney is like, we got to go to the bathroom, but you don't have nothing to pee. So it really makes with your stress hormone and many things.
Right, so it's called the fight flight hormone, and it's the hormone that reconverts the stored energy that you have, convert the glycogen to glucose so that you can actually have that energy, cause your heart to pump faster, which demands a little bit more energy, and that it causes you to do incredible things that you would not normally be able to do, like lifting up a whole car or jump off a building without feeling it. So it's like steroids as well. So you're not, you function in a state of fright, which you really can't, tell how you do these things. So that's the adrenal gland, which is on top of each kidney, and it works very closely with the pancreas.
Can you explain fly and fight before you continue?
Oh, fright.
Fly and fight things that you just said. Some of them hear it, I don't know if we get it.
Okay, so fright means you're frightened. And when you're frightened, what start happening? So your heart start pumping. And when your heart start pumping, what is demanded? You have more what? Circulation, right? So the pumping of the heart is an indication that you're going to need more energy. Because once the heart speed up, it's demanding things to go around. So it speed up the rate of circulation, the heart start pumping, so energy going around the body has to be more. So it is fright, and it's preparing you for flight, meaning you will run a little bit faster than you could normally.
So you're under a little pressure.
Exactly.
So in that case, a scientific term though. That's right and fight.
Do we get it now? Okay. Okay, and this is briefly in just a brief overview. The kidneys, it produce urine, and that's the most complex process. The ureter transport urine towards the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder temporarily stores the urine, and the urethra conduct the urine to the exterior in both male and female. Now the kidney's anatomy. Each kidney has two parts. The renal medulla is the inner portion, and the cortex is the outer portion. Okay? So the renal medulla consists of the renal pyramids, and we're going to look at how the kidney, what it looks like. which are collecting ducts that drains into the renal pelvis. Once urine leaves the renal pelvis, the composition or amount of urine does not change. Okay, so the amount and composition of urine we would assume is changing once the filtration process starts. So once the filtration process starts, the amount of urine and composition of the, well, it wasn't urine, the blood, what is filtered, it changes as it go along. So the volume changes because of the process of filtration and reabsorption. So this is what our kidney looks like. We talk about the renal pelvis. It's that area where, you know, it looks like it's cutting away. And we have the nephrons in here where we have the filtration occurring. We have the renal medulla right here on top. Okay, so we have the pelvis down here and the medulla up here, and the renal pelvis again. So the renal cortex is that outer portion. And what is this right here? Anybody know? Do you read? Ter. Yes, so this one is coming from. So this is what takes, after the filtration process occur, it's taking it to where? To the bladder. Right. Exactly, that's why I was trying to point it out earlier. Okay, so these are the primary structure of the kidney, the entire anatomy, and then we're going to try to get into the kidney and see if we can understand how the kidney works. Okay, and I'm going to give you an overview. So this is the nephrons, and here we could say these are the functional units of the kidney. This is where it occurs. We have blood. So if we have the branch of renal artery. So here we talk about the glomerulus, the proximal tubes or tubules. Okay. We have the loop of Henle and the distal tubules. Now, those are the primary parts that we have in this functional unit. So this is inside of the kidneys. Okay, let me go back. This one is not very clear. All right. Okay, so let's do that and then we'll see how we can break this apart to understand. So here we have the branch of the renal artery that works in conjunction with what? The heart, right? That pumps the blood into, so it has to come in a certain pressure to pump it inside of here, and it pumps it from the renal artery to the arterioles. It is arterioles because it is smaller. It is smaller than the artery. So it goes in here at a force, and arteries usually have, it has thicker muscles than veins. So arteries were designed to pump blood by, it's like a suction.
Like contraction?
Yes, like a contraction, and it sucks it and push it. So this renal artery pushes it up here, and it goes inside here. This part is called the glomerulus. So this is where the blood comes, and inside here, so this is the Bowman's capsule. So in this section is where the filtration starts. So it goes in here, and once it goes in here, the filtration is taking place. It pumps it to the proximal tubules. So this is the proximal tubules, and it's going to take it, and if you watch what is happening, and all through this process, all through this, you are having in all of these light-looking areas, you're going to have some form of filtering occurring, whether it's going to be the amount of salt that is in the blood and minerals in general, the toxin that is we take in on a daily basis from medication, from the air, the environment, wherever it comes from, or water. The kidney is constantly functioning to remove what is inside of the blood. Okay, and once it removes, filters and remove whatever it needs to remove, it goes back into the renal vein. And the renal veins will pump that back to the inferior vena cava, and then it goes around in the heart again, and the whole process starts over. So this is like an overview of what is happening. So here we have filtration, as I explained earlier, in the glomerulus. You have water, nutrients, and waste are filtered from the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule of the nephrons. Okay? So this is the only place in the blood where blood is actually being filtered. Okay? The blood pressure is used to push the plasma through the capillary walls. And how do you think it gets through the wall? What is the name of the process that brings it across the membrane? Us. Diffusion. Okay, so diffusion is the name of the process that forces it. And why is it able to go across the cell membrane?
Say it again.
Why? Why is it able to go across the cell membrane? Because it is semi-permeable. It is semi-permeable means what? Can everything selectively permeable, only some things would go across the membrane. Okay? What would be one variable that impact the reason why it will not go across? Its size. It's too large. Very good. Okay. So it goes into the Bowman's capsule, as we just looked at. So we talk about in the proximal tubule, you have nutrients such as salt, vitamin, etc. How many of us ever taken vitamin and when we urinate, we see some of it in B complex, right? It's always there. And, I mean, there are others that you might not literally see, but you're going to smell them, so they comes out in the urine. Move out of the tubule through active transport. What does active transport mean? Remember, we have passive and active. Active means what? You need what?
Energy.
Energy. So, would it be able to just go across?
No, we need somebody to transport.
It needs energy to transport it. So, these are where the suctions come in. That pushes it across the membrane. Okay? So, and remember when we did the cell membrane, we talked about some things could not go across because of the charges, and it requires this suction pump that opens and allow it to go through. Right. So it's a similar thing here. So the nutrients are removed by active transport. Water flows the nutrients by what? Follows the nutrients by what? And why is it osmosis? Because what is involved?
Concentration.
What is involved? What is one word that makes it osmosis? One word. Water. Remember, water is always osmosis. Okay. Okay, so it's a similar process as you see how they tie in. When we look at diffusion, or we look at the cell membrane, we look at diffusion, we understand that the cell membrane is critical in every single body process. Every single body process that occurs, the cell membrane plays a role. So nothing is isolated. In order for the kidney to function, things must diffuse across the membrane. Okay, so this is just something that we need to bear in mind. Now, the loop of Helen. And what do we notice here? What are the two primary things that we notice so we have what here? Sodium what? Sodium chloride. We have sodium chloride, and we have what? Water. Okay. How are they related? What's the relationship between sodium chloride and water in the normal functioning of the kidneys? Or what's the correlation? Huh? Say it.
Repeat the question again.
We want to know the correlation. We have sodium chloride, and we have water. Water will always follow salt. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. Now, when we urinate, how does it taste? And don't tell me you don't know what your urine tastes like. So, and you have no idea what your urine tastes like? Okay. It has to be salty. Okay. She has not.
Sometimes it's fresh. I've tasted mine and it's fresh to me.
And I don't understand. What's wrong? Why people acting like...
Wait, you guys act like you fall from heaven?
You never know?
Because it tastes like tears.
Yes, it does. Because it's an excrete. The difference between urine, sweat, and other waste that leave our body is that they go through the cell. So if you never taken any salt, it's going to come, or it is supposed to be salty. You have never eaten salt. Let's say you are somebody from another place. Exactly, and you don't eat salt. The normal functioning of all our bodies, it's bathed in salt water. It's salt water it's bathed in. So if you're going to excrete, and in order for you to truly excrete, they must go through the cells. So those are really true excretory products. If it didn't go through the cell, like the fecal matter you pass out, it's not considered excretion. Those are undigested waste.
Why would you want to taste your urine anyway?
It's not a matter of why you would want to taste it. Nobody really, it just happened. People just know how their urine tastes.
Wait, you are afraid of taste. People are who are drinking it. Because in it, there's a lot of urine therapy out there. They have to do it. I don't recommend it, but people are doing big thing about it.
You don't have to even taste it to know that it is salty.
We don't ask you to drink it. You just taste it, no?
Sister, do you mind?
Yes.
Firstly, let's get this clear. It's not about drinking your urine or anything, but the way it passes, when it comes out, it is not dirty. It's considered sterile because it hasn't touched anything. So it's not dangerous to even taste it because it's not doing any harm to you.
Unless you have an infection.
No, thank you.
Going past that, but, you know. And if you have an infection, you know, I mean, because a urinary infection, there is pain and whatever associated with it. But other than that, it's not really doing anything to you.
You can taste
In
number
copious
one, but
amounts,
not number
possibly,
two.
yeah. What number two? Number two is not sterile. But yeah.
So as I said, number 2 is things that are not digested. They cannot go into your cells, so they come out.
So don't taste that one.
Okay, so let's go back. So the loop of Henle is another part of the urinary system, or another part of all of that. It's another part of the, so we look at this, and we talk about the Bowman capsule and the glomeruli, the arterial. So we have the loop of Henle's. Okay. And where is that? It is right here. Okay, so we're going to look at how that works. So tissue around this area is salty. And from active transport and diffusion of sodium chloride, as is stated here, so it is very salty in this area, and a salty condition allows water to diffuse out of the loop. Okay, so that allows water to diffuse. Okay, so we have salt here, and salt will do what? Anywhere, if you put some salt outside and you leave it in an area that is humid, what's going to happen to it after a while? It's going to become liquid because water follows salt wherever it goes. Okay? Now, and we have the distal tubule here. And what do we see happening here as well? We have what kind of transport? We have active transport is used to move more nutrients out of the concentrated urine, and some ions, drugs and toxin are actively pumped into this tubule. So where would this tubule be going? It is going to where? It is about to enter the ureter right here. So it makes sure that it removes most of what's toxic in the blood, and that's not saying that all of it is removed. It would take a little bit more for it to be for you to actually remove, or you have to do something deliberate and intentional to remove all of it, because it takes a little while. Now, this is the collecting duct here, and more water leaves it. So when we talk about the concentration changes as it travels through the filtration process until it gets to the ureter. This is what I'm talking about. So the renal medulla removes more water from it, and that water will go back into your system. and this happened because it is surrounded by salty tissue. And some urea leaves by diffusion and may be recycled or go back into your system. Okay, so we have a whole it's like what you call it, like a factory, a set of activity occurring in series right here. So all of this is happening within your system, and so for the day on a whole, we will it's what, 1700 milliliters of urine that is, or blood that is filtered, is filtered consistently. So this is the whole process. So we have the filtration, the tabular reabsorption, and also more secretion, tabular secretion occurring right across here. Okay, so we have osmosis, active transport, and diffusion occurring in the entire filtration process. And this is happening every minute, every hour, and every second in your body or in the urinary system. Okay, and this is somewhat very similar. Okay, so which of these happen during the filtration process? This is a question. One, salt is actively pumped out. What else?
2.
So it's 1 and 2. Water is removed osmotically from. Okay, and so it's either 1 or 2.
It's just 1 and 4.
1 and 4 toxins are actively removed from plasma. Okay.
No one?
I mean, these. So this one would have covered plasma move from capillaries into the capsules. So this is where the process starts, and all the things are removed on the way. What drives filtration in the glomerulus? Blood pressure? Is that what drives it or what happened as a result? Are we
Filtration drives filtration. If you filter something, you gotta be water, osmosis.
Okay, so we says osmosis and blood pressure. You say one, osmosis. Osmosis is a process.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Salt gradient.
You know, I was going to say that to her.
Okay, it's all right. I mean,
Mr. Kim.
okay, which of these aids in water recover from the filtrates? Two, you said active transport of sodium out of filtrate. You said two? Which one you pick? Two. See, you get it, right? Okay. Now blood supply to the kidney. So 25% of cardiac output to the kidney. So it's 25% of the cardiac output goes to the kidneys. The renal artery arises from the abdominal aorta. Do we get that? So the abdominal aorta, that is the lower section. So we have the ventricle and then we have the aorta at the top when we look at the heart. So the abdominal aorta is what would have pumped. That pumped the blood, the aorta, that pumps the blood there. The renal artery provides into progressively smaller branches, and we looked at that. Can you remember when we looked at the arterioles? So it's smaller, so it becomes smaller, and it pumps the blood into the Bowman's capsule right there. And each afferent and arteriole branch down to glomerulus, and the glomerulus is that section where we have those small blood vessels. Blood flow leaves the glomerulus through the afferent, arteriole, and eventually back to the inferior vena cava. And that's where it enters the heart itself, and then goes back into the cycle, and it goes into the pulmonary artery, reoxygenate, come back into the left, and then it goes into the body again. And this is similar to what we just looked at.
George is amazing.
Oh yeah. And this is just one little part of such a small organ, because the kidney is what? One kidney is what? How much did we say a kidney weighs?
4.5 ounces.
Yes, it's 4.5 ounces. So within that, this is one little section of it where filtration occurs. And then we have the nephrons, and we have approximately 1 million nephrons. And what did we say was the functional unit in the lung? Anybody remember? Where the actual gas exchange occur. I think we look at that. Gas exchange at the end of each of those bronchioles, right at the end, and there's a little grape-like structure, and it's right there. And you have blood vessels carrying oxygen in and displacing carbon dioxide and going. What do we say that structure is called?
Alveoli.
Yes, the alveoli. Very good. So the functional unit of the kidneys is the nephrons. So we have millions of nephrons. So it's has approximately 1 million, and this is just an approximation. It functions in less than if the function is less than 20% for the nephrons, they start thinking about replacement therapy. And when we talk about, is it possible to bring back this to its optimal? Okay, so what do you think are some of the problems or reasons why the nephrons don't function as they should? Okay, number one, we might not be drinking enough water. And when we don't drink enough water, what happens to our blood pressure? If it does increase, why do they give us water pills when our blood pressure is high? Anybody know?
They give you water pill?
Yes, they
What
give.
do you mean water pill? It's a pill of water?
Yes,
I feel that you go to the bathroom.
right.
Diuretic, right?
Diuretics, yeah. So they give us a pill so that we can urinate a lot if our blood pressure is high. So do we actually have an increase in blood pressure when we don't drink enough water?
If you don't drink enough water, your blood will get thick, so your heart will have to pump harder to push it.
Mhm.
So-
And then?
When the heart starts to pump harder to push the blood, it increases the pressure
Pressure where?
in the artery.
Exactly. Now you get the point. The pressure on the wall of your artery is where the problem is coming from. And that can even lead to some damage of the artery and can create a lot of other trouble. And that can break and bleed inside and do anything that can happen.
How long does that take to occur? Because I am struggling to get Faith to drink water. It's like today she drink, next week she don't drink. Today she'll drink a cup, tomorrow maybe 2 cups, and then for the next 2 weeks, if I get her to take 2 ounces, I'm lucky.
Well,
And I give her water, like I juice citrus and different fruits. So what I do, like I do like 2 ounces of the juice that I juice and 1 ounce or ounce and a half of water. So
if you give her things that are, maybe some things that are more interesting than just pure water or water with lemon juice, maybe change it up every day, maybe flavor the water, give her flavored water. So pineapple water, extract. So
And now gonna be for life.
no, you just do it to get her to drink it.
For now, right?
Yeah, flavored water. Give her onion in the water. She might like it. You know, some babies like high vibrations, so you just never know.
Cucumber in the water, it tastes different.
And then,
Right. So the nephron is responsible for the initial formation of urine. As we said, it is where urine occurs. Okay, and these are the functions that we state the kidneys does. Which of these did we already look at? Which of these did we look at thus far? Any of them? Did we look at any of them? Can you recall what we said about any of them? So we look at any of these?
Kidney
the urine
functions,
We didn't look.
excretion of
waste
waste
products.
products.
Okay.
It's everything.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. All right. He said we look at everything. We look at urine formation. Well, we were looking earlier.
Excretion of waste products.
Oh, no, not everything.
Okay. So where does the initiation of urine formation start? In the nephrons. Okay. And can you say any products that is excreted as a part of the urine?
Yeah.
Electrolytes,
Salt,
salt, anything else?
solids sometimes.
Vitamins, yes.
Toxins.
Toxin, anything else? It's urine. What else is in the urine? Urine. Water, yes. Yes, water is in it. What about urea? Where does urea come from? Anybody know?
Lactic acid? No. Uric acid.
Uric acid. And where does that come from? The end product of what?
Acidic uric.
Urea comes from what? We use
Like highly acidic foods like beans.
like, okay, so protein. So the breakdown of protein, yes. So urea, nitrogen. So we have the nitrogen. So nitrogen is not in too many things, but whenever we consume it, that's where it breaks down and it gets in the urine. That's why when you eat a lot of protein, like a whole plate of chickpeas, that causes you to urinate a little bit more, right? Because because the
people who eat chicken.
yes, the chickpeas is loaded with nutrients. It's a lot of protein, you know, and sometimes we eat too much protein, and that messes up what? What are we talking about?
Urinary tract.
The kidneys. You see, you don't hear of the bladder being gone that much. How many of you? Urethra being punctured, the bladder is punctured. You don't hear of that. What do you hear of? Kidney failure. Right. Right. So, and all kind of disorders related to the kidneys.
You saying if somebody eat chickpeas once a week, his kidney will be broken then?
Oh, I didn't say that. I said,
I'm just asking.
okay, you want me to answer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm saying when we eat excess protein, more than our body needs, like a whole plate. It's too much. So it's not a balanced intake. And that put a lot of pressure on our kidneys. And we did not say anybody was going to get kidney failure as a result of that. But if we are consistent with this, then it could lead to something else. Do we understand now? Yes. Okay. Okay. So, excretion of waste product, we talk about the stuff that are eliminated in the urine. And I just want us to understand that. So when let me make that connection later. Regulation of electrolytes. What's that?
Isn't that osmosis?
Okay, osmoregulation. And when we talk about electrolytes, what are we talking about? When you buy some Pedialyte for your child, what does it taste like?
I never tried it.
Something.
Maybe minerals, right? So it's predominantly minerals, and in most cases, if you buy Pedialyte, it's going to have some sugar and some salt, pretty much.
What's copyright?
Huh? It's a form of electrolytes you give the babies, like coconut water is high, it has a lot of potassium. It's used for rehydration. If they have diarrhea or they're very sick, hot, they give them Pedialytes. So that's something they sell in the store.
So the coconut water would be more healthy.
Yes, so that would do the same thing. So it's a form of electrolytes. Yes. Okay. And regulation of acid-base balance. Remember when we did acidosis? And we talk about how does the body get acidic? As a result of, So acidic food, but we have two primary organs within our system that regulates the pH of our body. Anybody can remember?
Say it again.
We have structure within our system that really regulate the pH.
Your bone structure will give you a lot of calcium that is very alkaline mineral. I don't know if I understand your question.
Okay, so I don't understand the bone structure is the last result. It does pull from there when the pH is. Well, the blood has
Maybe rephrase the question a little bit.
okay. So we mentioned two primary structures or organs in the body that helps with the regulation of pH. And if these organs are not working, the
Okay, okay.
yeah. When we did acidosis.
Any organ that will eliminate waste will definitely help. Your urinary system
Okay.
to remove this excess of bad stuff. Your lymphatic system help you to sweat toxin out. Your liver keeping the toxin from hurting you. And your fat cells that are keeping the toxin in your body from invading your whole system.
Okay, so the whole body works in unison to maintain the pH, but there are two structures, two organs.
Wait, I'm gonna tell you something.
We talked about one last week.
The lung and the kidney.
Yes, the
I
lungs.
just mentioned take the kidney. Where you refuse from?
No, that was my answer. You can piggyback off of me.
I saw her like kidney will remove the toxin, and then when we sweat,
And I didn't say
the
no.
lymphatic system removes some of
We're
it.
waiting for one more.
And she
Like
never
you.
was like,
Don't look at your notes.
Explain details,
Lung
so
and
that's
kidney.
why. You taught us how to explain in details, so that's why I get back to that.
Okay, so
And the kidney.
it's the lungs and the kidney. Remember, the lungs, remember we talked about it? Can anybody remember what we said about them?
bring
They usually compensate for slight pH imbalances.
Okay, and when the lung doesn't work, the body is going to get what? Very,
very acidic.
and if the kidney is not working, exactly. So we talk about those two organs, so we must bear those.
Question here: how when your lungs don't work well, your acidosis raises? Remember, oxygen is balancing quickly, so you don't have oxygen supply. Guess what? You can eliminate your CO2. It's actually very toxic. to some
Exactly.
So-
Remember we did to test that we actually exhale carbon dioxide, and if that cannot come out,
Thank you.
yes, so we have to remember these little things. Just remember these little things.
They're really important.
Yes. Okay, so we talk about regulation of acid-base balance. Very crucial. So the lungs and the kidney. The lungs remove carbon dioxide, which is very acidic. And if it's not removed, then it backs up in the system. It's going to dump it in the kidney. And then the kidneys itself will have extra work to do because all the toxin go through the liver. What the liver can't handle, it dump it on the kidneys. So we must also be mindful of those. Control of water balance. How does the kidney help to control water balance? Why do we get water pills, diuretics? What is the relations here to the correlation?
What do you mean? No, we understand.
We want to find a correlation between controlling of water balance. If your kidneys are not functioning optimally to regulate, that is to remove excess water, what's going to happen?
Actually, you get,
Edema
you have to get
emphysema.
clogged, they get tighter. It makes it harder for the blood to flow properly through it. So getting the water pill removes more water. It causes you to go to the bathroom more frequently when actually your body needs the water so that your heart is not working too hard to pump the blood because the blood starts to thicken up because there's not enough water in your system.
Well, kind of, because we have a tendency, you see, when the heart has to work harder to pump blood that is thicker, it is an imbalance in the amount of water. But here we're looking at how the kidneys work to maintain or control water balance. Is it necessary for us to have any minerals in this in order for water balance to occur?
Of course,
Can somebody explain how that occurs? Why is that important?
The salt attracts the water.
Okay, so salt attracts.
So if you, like if your doctor say you have blood pressure, don't take salt. That can really hurt you bad. You can take good salt. Okay, and good salt help you always taking out of all the excess that you don't really need. So you can refuse. Normally when they say don't take salt, they're referring to table salt, normally. But you can take Himalayan pink salt or Celtic salt and your blood pressure should be fine. If you remove all the salt, you're going to be in a lot of trouble unless you replace another way.
And why would you be in trouble if you remove all the salt?
You are going to have so much edema because you can't be eliminating the water properly. You need the salt to pull out, help you for the filtration stuff.
And what?
Doesn't the salt have the mineral that is needed for
It,
enable the kidney to flush out whatever?
yes, it also helps in the normal functioning of the kidney. So if we remove salt 100% from our diet, there is no osmoregulation. We have sodium and we have potassium pump. That helps with the nervous system. Yeah, but the doctors want you to stay off salt so that they could give you have to stay on those pills, those water pills, the diuretics. So you take them and then they give you more and more and more so you can actually go to the bathroom, wherein all you need to do is to take some good salt, which will control that regulation. Then if you have other issue, then that's another problem. So what about blood pressure? Where does that come in?
Blood pressure is the pressure on the wall of your artery. And it can also have a pressure on the cell membrane.
Okay,
There are many forms of blood pressure.
So how does the kidney regulate blood pressure? What does the kidney have to do with blood pressure? We're talking about the heart right here.
Yeah, but the thing is, you see, when you show the picture, you have the blood that comes in the kidney, get filtrate, right? This is the kidney. The blood flow here comes in the kidney. Kidney filter that, it return the good blood, and then the bad stuff go through the ureter, right? And they go in the blood and pee out. So the kidneys, they take the blood, filter the blood, send the toxin through the ureter, the good blood goes over here. So if the kidney is not filtering very well, then it's not controlling things properly.
So therefore the blood is going to be what? What is going to be the pH of the blood if the kidney? Acidic. And an acidic blood does what to the vessels?
And that may start eating up the walls.
So it messes up the blood vessels, and therefore what happens as a result? The blood vessels become damaged. So you have plaquing.
Now, may I follow what you said also? Follow a little bit what she's saying.
I'm just saying, if the vessels are damaged, what is happening to those vessels? The body has to make
the wall of the vessel.
yes, the blood vessel.
So the body will send cholesterol to patch.
Yes,
And then you end up having cholesterol build up now.
yes.
So the diameter, is it diameter? It becomes restrained. So you can push through as easy as possible.
Okay,
Then you can ever have any attack, any heart attack, anything explode. So create a lot of trouble.
okay. Exactly. So the blood vessel could, because of back up or the pressures. Okay. All right. So we look at all of these, and then we're going to look at, let's just run through these so that we get them. So we talk about urine formation and its form in the nephron. We mentioned that, and we talk about glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and secretion. We look at these already. We talk about selective reabsorption of water, and solute occurs in the tubules. So we went over those briefly. Now these are waste, excretion of waste product. Now we said the kidney is the main excretory organ. The major waste product of protein metabolism is urea. 25 to 30 grams are produced and excreted daily. Now, other waste product are, what are they? Creatine, phosphate.
Sulfates, uric acid, drug metabolites.
Okay, so when we talk about keratin, now, what is the significance of that in your urine? I mean, all of them are significant, but let's say that's high. What is that telling you? Now, creatine, high levels of creatine in the urine. Does that tell you anything? Or low levels? What does that tell you? If it's high or if it's low? What's the significance?
What is creatine
I don't know
first?
what creatine is.
Okay.
How that helps? How the creatine helps with your mitochondria and producing energy, all of that.
Okay, so what is it? Anybody have any idea?
Creatinine?
Huh?
Creatinine?
Yes.
It's a hormone that's used for muscle building
Mm-hmm.
and muscle structure.
Okay.
So how to deal with your ATP and
Okay, so we're looking at,
energy.
okay, so is there any connection between that and urea or protein in general? Because we use protein for muscle building as well. Okay, so when creatine is high in your blood or low, it is very significant. They use it as a determination, as to say how well is the kidneys functioning. So it tells you how well the kidney is functioning. So if let's say 20 here, other waste product, which includes all of these. So our uric acid, drug metabolites, the sulfite, the phosphate, and the creatines are all things that are measured when we, and maybe one of these days when we do our practical days, I don't know if we will be able to test like the creatines, but we can do like a urine analysis, so we figure out how to test the urine, what are the things we look for in the urine, because I said it was a lot when we look at, when I look at the kidneys, I realize there's a whole lot of stuff that we could actually do, and that might be, that we will use that as a part of, well, so there's a lot of things you could test using your urine, and that's like one of the things we're going to try to look at when we do our practical day. And we talk about regulation of electrolytes. So in normal functioning, the amount of electrolytes excreted per day is equal to the amount ingested. So sodium, and that's normal function in kidney. How many of us have normal functioning kidneys? Huh?
Only you.
How do you check for that?
I'm just asking. So it's linked to blood volume and pressure, signifies the effect of osmotic pressure. 90% of sodium is ultrafiltrates in reabsorption in the proximal tubules and loops of NLs. Okay, so here we have a hormone. Aldosterone causes kidney to reabsorb sodium. Okay, now if we have a constant reabsorption of sodium or too much reabsorption of sodium, how can that affect us? Okay, so we could end up having some swelling in different areas. Now, okay, and potassium. The kidney excrete more than 90% of the potassium intake to maintain a normal serum balance. Do we need a lot of potassium in our system? Now, when people have serious kidney issues, now, so aldosterone causes the kidney to excrete potassium. Now, let's say someone's kidney levels is at a 2 or 2.5. Should they be eating a lot of fruits? Why? Why they shouldn't eat a lot of fruits? Fruits are high in what? In potassium. So if fruits are high in potassium, do we need more potassium No. So when someone having those kind of issue with their kidney, they usually also take them off all these fruits or anything that is high in potassium. So we need to be mindful of that when we look at kidney disorders. So it's not everything that fruits will treat. Is someone having issues with, all right, let's wait until we get there. Yes, because there's so much to cover. Now, so regulation of acid-base balance. So we normal serum, and we talk about the blood pH, must be about 7.5 to 7.45. Normal urine is what? Is it acidic or basic?
Acidic.
Who says?
4.6 to 8, that's acidic.
It is alkaline.
Okay, so it could be, it's the spectrum is wide depending on how your body is functioning. Okay.
People who eat too much chickpeas will be acidic.
Yes, a whole pot of chickpeas in one day for 10 people. That's like 3 days, right? Okay, so we should eat like this amount. If we have big hands, we eat the amount that will fit here. If we have small hands, we eat that amount. Just like this amount.
According to you.
So the kidney's third line of defense is acid-base balance. Respiratory and other buffer system respond more rapidly. The kidney requires several hours to a day or more to readjust balance. So we need to remember this when we write our protocols, that, there are things reabsorbed bicarbonates from ultrafiltrate.
Never prescribe any chickpeas for patient. Only me.
Okay, what do they use when they're doing dialysis? In a dialysis, do they use bicarbonates as part of sodium, like baking soda? Yes, they do. Yes. So can we benefit from using that in case our kidneys
Very temporary, maybe for a lot of side effects.
it's
When you're talking about bicarbonate, you're talking about natural bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is manufactured, so it's temporarily. But remember, the purpose of bicarbonate is to buffer and balance.
exactly. So I was just asking if there's any benefit, for, just temporarily. Yes. Because I know I was talking to my sister and she was saying when someone is dying and they don't want them to die on them, they pump them up with sodium back before, so she don't want them to die on her shift. So she said, okay, let's just do that. So it helps to keep them alive longer. Yes.
So they run away before you die.
Thank you for letting me know.
Of course. Imagine somebody having a pain, right? It's serious pain.
It does help.
Don't bicarbonate will give the patient drink, you get relief, but you don't know before the next pain came. They don't use it regularly. Like if somebody is having a pain issue and you come, the first thing you can do that. Just so the person can see like, oh, okay, this thing can work. Then switch it. Don't keep it regular. You can do it once to relieve the pain. Now use something better like hemp extract and whatever, all the other mix to remove the pain. And the best way of removing the pain is increase blood flow. If you can use light and heat, whatever.
So control of water balance. Now our bodies are made of between 60 and 70% water. It's regulated by antidiuretics, hormone, or vasopressin. So we and this is all about how water's the water balance is maintained via the kidneys. Okay. Is secreted by the pituitary. The hormone is secreted by the pituitary in response to serum osmolality. So if the regulation seems off, then it sends that that hormones is produced, and it increases reabsorption of water to return serum osmolality to normal. So it is, if it's either way, the hormone is released or not released, which helps to regulate the normal water balance. So a decreased water intake stimulates HDH release, or the hormones, so it releases it. Controlled volume, so the hormone controls volume and concentration of urine by regulating permeability of distal tubule to water. So that's a lot. In just understanding, we just need to understand that the control of water balance is regulated by antidiuretics, a hormone, and that is either released when it's needed. If you are dehydrated, you will have less of it released, and if you are too hydrated, then more of it will be released, which will. Now the blood pressure. We're going to ask Pastor Coco to explain this one for us.
Blood pressure?
Yes, control of blood pressure. And we have this hormone that is called renin that helps in decrease blood pressure.
Blood pressure. If you ask me to explain blood pressure,
So we want to explain it with regards to renin.
I understand. Let me just how is your constitution of blood first? How much of plaquette you have there?
Mm-hmm.
Are you prone to coagulation? And then now the health of your arteries alone. Okay, the health of your arteries alone is something separate. The constitution of your blood is also separate. Now your hormones work big time.
Mm-hmm.
Now your activity. Okay, are you always sitting in the same place all day? You go home sleep. So there are a lot of factors that you put together. The blood pressure, as a definition, is the pressure of the blood on your cell membrane. Then we ask where they're coming from. So to start regulating that, you have to heal your arteries.
Mm-hmm.
You can use nitric oxide that help for the good circulation. You have increased your circulatory system properly. You gotta take some
Diuretics.
Herbs and food and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we talk about the excess of protein creating uric acid and all the other problems. So you remove this protein from the person's diet, or you take some good quality, add enzyme digestion first, so you don't have too much trouble with that. Very, very balanced. And then you take the herbs to cleanse out, remove the bad. The blood can be thick if you have a lot of bad cholesterol in that blood. Okay, the blood can be thick if you are prone to coagulation. The blood can be thick if you have too much toxin in your blood. Your blood will be thick if your lymphatic is congested, because your lymphatic system is responsible of like a backup for your blood to help with the blood quickly and interstitial concentrations. Now, the wall, your artery, the wall, the health of your wall now depends
It's
on
7 o'clock.
if you are taking certain drug to lower your cholesterol, you're in big trouble. Why? You need cholesterol to maintain the elasticity. The wall of your artery should be elastic. it can be able to increase and come back to normal. Okay?
Okay.
So if it cannot dilate properly, it can be like ripped and create a lot of trouble. You can have internal hemorrhage.
Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage.
So if the blood is thick because full of bad cholesterol, toxin, all of that, okay, and then your cell, you're always sitting in the same place, no good circulation. So your lymphatic fluid is not flushing anything, or you're not sweating. People spend a whole month don't sweat, okay, and then you're eating protein-rich food. So everything is first thick, and the wall sick, and you're not moving. The pressure will be definitely high. You can be taking the pills to control it, but you still have high blood pressure bad. That can kill you.
Okay.
So what we are doing is, when we're taking the pill to just control the number, you're not healing the person. You're not reversing anything. You're not healing the wall. You're not healing the blood. You're not removing any toxin. So it's really, it requires a whole, to repair the whole system, then the body gonna fix the numbers.
Okay. Did we get that? Okay. All right. So blood pressure is controlled by this hormone.
How the plaque formation in the artery play with the blood pressure.
It's less space for the
Less
blood
space for the blood to go through.
Okay.
So do you see why it's not just about the blood itself? The cell membrane health is a big thing. Now, how do we keep the blood itself, the way the blood should be thin, how do we keep it normal?
Drink water.
Drinking water.
More than that.
Basic. That's the first step.
Yeah, of course.
Increase your water intake. Pure water.
That's the first step.
So what made the blood thicker than it should?
Well, those are variables. So we could look at 10 different things. We could look at fat. We could look at sugar. We could look at carbon dioxide. We could look at all these variables. So we have to deal with those. So transition is a whole transformation of lifestyle. So
what is the highest liquid in our body? The system that have more liquid in our body. Lymphatic have about more than 3 times of your blood.
Your blood, yes.
So how that have to deal with your blood pressure?
If the lymphatic system is basically stagnant, it's not moving, then it thickens everything. So then
it's going to have a backup, and then the blood is being bathed in
The
sewer.
lymphatic is your bathroom. The bathroom is clogged up, the whole house gonna smell. Everything going back.
It's the waste.
So it's the blood quality, the lymphatic, because the lymphatic help for the elimination, swelling, peeing, all of these things, and the quality of your blood, the bad fat, the bad cholesterol. The people who are eating, like especially you see this food nowadays when they grow the food so fast, and you're eating this chicken, it's full of too much bad fat, and all of that goes straight in your bloodstream. So imagine how your blood look like.
I don't have to imagine.
So imagine if you, let's say you put in, you take a lot of toxin in. You eating food that full of toxin, put in makeup, you eating some, you breathing some, and if you're not moving, you're not exercising, you're not eliminating anything. Your food is bad. You're drinking everything else. The blood look horrible.
I know.
And that blood now like that gonna go through another 6 arteries also. That is mixed up with everything else. It's a chaos. So pill cannot be just used to be controlling numbers. It's very bad to do it that way.
Especially they say they give us some blood thinners. And then the problem is worse.
It might help for time, but it's about repairing the whole system, repair everything.
Well, see, one thing you've got to remember though, the problems in the health system is really it's really our responsibility as Seventh-day Adventists. We were supposed to understand this health message. They're really doing the best that they can with the problem. And they're trying to solve it, but they don't even have the counsel and understanding that we have. So God is really going to hold you and I as Adventists who's supposed to know this health message and supposed to be sharing it with them. You know, because really, he has made this thing so simple, lifestyle, you know, to alleviate these problems. I mean, and for some reason, we don't want to believe that it's as simple as it is. And the Holy Spirit is there to guide us in how to, you know, how to do these things. And it's very.
Okay, so we're going to get back to some of the science of how this, the urinary system regulates blood pressure. So there is a specific hormone that is called renin. So this hormone, okay, the kidneys secrete the hormone renin when there is a decrease in blood pressure. Okay, so when the blood pressure drops very low, it secretes this hormone. And what do you think the function of this hormone is supposed to do? Well, the idea is to bring it back up. But there's a process that is involved in bringing it up. So renin converts angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 converts to angiotensin 2, and this angiotensin 2 is a powerful vasoconstrictor, and that causes the blood pressure to do what? Right. So this goes back to what we're saying. So when the vessels constrict, when there's plaquing on the walls of the arteries, it's going to cause the blood pressure to do what? Increase. An increase in blood pressure stops the excretion of renin. So it stops when the blood pressure gets to the point where it should be normal. Now the adrenal cortex also releases aldosterone in response to increased serum osmolality or poor perfusion to increase blood pressure. So this hormone is one of the hormones that regulates blood pressure, and hormones are made of what? What makes hormone? What is one of the primary things?
The fat is the raw material.
Right.
That's used now. It depends on which hormone it will require what's needed to make that.
Exactly. So fat is the primary raw material responsible. So when all our fat is wiped out, it's going to throw off. Exactly. So that will cause our hormones to be all over the place.
So they put you off salt. Don't eat any salt. And they give you more certain drug, so you won't produce good cholesterol. It's just time for you.
Okay, so
Just a
we
couple
did
years.
this.
You're breaking down slowly.
We talk about the potassium already in the serum and how this affects our electrolytes. So red blood cells regulation. The kidney release erythropoietin when they sense a decrease in oxygen in the blood. Erythropoietin stimulates the bone marrow to produce red blood cells. So it is another hormone that regulates the production of red blood cells. So these are things we must be cognizant of if we are working with the urinary system. We've got to look at the hormones that help in the regulation of blood pressure, hormones that works in regulation of the production of red blood cells. So these hormones have to be taken into consideration in order for these stimulation to occur effectively.
Why the red blood cell here play? Why? What is the place of red blood
red blood cell in
How the regulation, I'm asking them who are following, how the regulation of the red blood cell have to do with this?
oxygen.
Because red blood cells transfer oxygen.
You get it now? So in the red blood cell, you have hemoglobin. In that hemoglobin, you have what? Iron. So that iron fixing oxygen and to take everywhere. So what about you have high level of red blood cell, you have a low iron in it?
So acidosis.
So you have people have a lot of blood, they're still lacking oxygenation because iron is very, very low. You don't have enough iron, they can give you all the perfusion they want. If that blood they give you a single point in iron, you're in big trouble.
Especially when they don't have surface area, because when all the blood.
Area to fix the things.
Okay. So vitamin D synthesis. What role does the kidney play in vitamin D synthesis? So when we have vitamin D stored in our body. We outside in the sun, some of it is stored. So it has to be reconverted. Once it's reconverted to vitamin D, the body can utilize it. So the kidney convert inactive vitamin D to dihydrochlorocalciferol, right? And vitamin D is necessary for calcium balance. Remember, we look at calcium balance when we did walking in the light, in the sunlight. Okay, so it is very necessary. So regulation of calcium and phosphorus balance. So this is also another function of the kidney. So it works in the regulation. So when we have vitamin D helps in the balance of calcium phosphorus within the system. Okay, all right, let's see. It's so much. So we look at the functions and we want to get to some of the disorders of the urinary system. Okay, so we have the disorders of the urinary system, and we're just going to look at some of them. You know, in the interest of time, we could spend a whole night here looking at disorders and how to deal with them. So we have the renal celluli, and this is all called kidney stone. And we have phosphate and uric acid. They gradually get larger until they block the ureter, and that is an obstruction. And if the ureter is blocked, and it can be blocked in different places, what are some of the effects? What can that do to us? How do we know this is blocked in the first place? If the ureter is blocked, how can we tell? So there's no output of urine in the first place. So if it's blocked on either anywhere it's blocked, you're not going to have urine output. Or if it's blocked, it's not 100% blocked, what are you going to experience? You will experience lots of pain. Okay? So these stones, how can we get rid of them?
Stone need to dissolve.
So we have to do something to break them up so that you.
This week, our sister doing a kidney cleanse. You know our traditional kidney cleanse. Olive oil, lemon juice. And they start the third day have a severe pain. She said it's pain more than giving birth.
I heard.
It was,
I heard about it, especially from the
so
men.
bad. And that on Sabbath very early in the morning. If you take that pain to the hospital, they're gonna cut you. They're gonna cut you right there. So I said, take a lot of lemon juice. And you can add any good stuff to it and drink it. And put the light, heat up the place. If you heat it up enough, you're going to bring blood flow. and blood flow gonna help to dilate. You can flush the stuff, and then I had to add special herbs for the breaking of the stone. We have a lot of herbs for that. You know hydrangea? You know a herb called stone breaker?
What do you call it?
It's called stonebreaker.
Called stone breaker, that's what I
Yeah.
call it. Stone breaker. It is all stone. And then you need also to use a lot of omega-3 to dilate, to lose things. So you are breaking down the stone at the same time, you let the space to be much, it's like you are dilating to liberate, almost the same process. So you're doing both.
So you're kind of loosening the stone, and then you're dilating
Exactly.
the vessel so that it could be reach around.
And by God's grace, they did it in the next hour, next 2 hours, something like that. And he texted me and said, whoa, everything was gone until now. And it was it. And like, it was bad, believe me. It was last Sabbath, actually, last Sabbath. Who knows Sister Gloria? Sister Gloria? Her daughter in law. It was really bad. You know? So when these things happen, you really, anytime you deal with any problem, don't look at one thing. Look at everything at the same time. That's how you're gonna really help. Because if something don't 100%, this come help, you still have the problem solved.
So we have nephritis, and
About the stone, one second. You know we form stone in our heart also? So people have stone in the heart, people have stone in their brain. If you stone anywhere, so it has calcification of stone in trouble. Okay? That's why we need more silica than calcium. Don't be buying calcium from the counter. You never do that. Because that calcium is very inorganic. It's hard for your kidney to process this thing out. And you have crystallization of this thing, you're in big trouble.
okay, so we have inflammation of the kidneys that cause, we have kidney infection, and that can cause incontinence, and that is involuntary urination. A lot of people suffer from this, both male and female, and this can be controlled or regulated. I mean, your kidneys inflame for whatever reason. You have infection of whatever type. There is a bacteria invasion. We just need to predominantly clean the blood. Yes.
Question. Back to stones, kidney stones, particularly. What is the cause of kidney stones?
So we mentioned that kidney stone is, we have
Causes them
to harden. So we have different things because there are people who have a serious reaction to things like oxalate, foods that are high in oxalates. So these things we have to be conscious of when we're dealing with people who have this kind of condition. The regular green leafy vegetables, a lot of them are very, very high in oxalates, so we would not be able to put them on a program like that. We'll have to take them off. They could have things, yes. So the nuts, a lot of our nuts are very high in oxalates as well. So those can, there are some people just eating one little bit of anything that is green, some of the green stuff. Almonds is high in oxalates, kale, cabbage is not, so there are certain kinds of food, blueberries and all of these things that are nice and healthy for regular people. You cannot give them those to eat when you put them on a program if they have an issue with kidney stones. Yes.
If I may add, there's also research showing that a very common thing that is eaten, apart from the healthy stuff, mixing and combination of what we have as processed orange juice,
Mm-hmm.
along with milk, cow's milk. We did yeah. When I say mixing them, you see how people serve a breakfast, the regular breakfast, you have the oatmeal and the whatever with the milk, and then you have
Orange juice.
they chase it. They
Oh.
mix together and it
Oh.
causes chemical reaction
Mm-hmm.
where the calcium in the cow milk
Mm-hmm.
hardens. And
Oh.
makes those stones.
Calcification. Okay. Wow. Yes. And really, and this is very complex when we're dealing with people with kidney stones. A very complex case. Getting rid of the stones is one thing, but, you know, as I said, the regular programs that you will put everyone else on will not work for them. Because you could put someone on a program, and if you're not aware that they have this kind of issue, they're going to come down with some serious stones and end up in the hospital or wherever, you know, if their kidneys easily become, this calcification occur. Okay. Okay, so we have cystitis, and this is another issue that we normally suffer from when, okay. Almost. I'm going to try to, you know, because I know it's, so this inflammation of the mucous membrane lining of the urinary bladder, and most common cause is E. coli. And if we have this issue, what is something that we're very common that we take if we have any form of inflammation or bacteria in our bladder? What do we sticking on to our bladder? What do we normally take or recommend?
Cranberry.
Cranberry juice, right? Oh, okay, why? That's the next question. Why do we use cranberry? What does it do?
It cleans out the urinary tract, so the inflammation is there, so you can go to the bathroom.
So if we have an inflammation in the bladder or a UTI, you take cranberry juice and it cleans it out. Do we know how?
It's not because the cranberry is a bit more acidic.
Cranberry juice. Oh, you finished? Sorry.
Jeez.
No, I was saying because I think that the cranberry is a bit more acidic, so it was able to balance out what's there, so that the inflammation can be reduced.
Anybody else have a different way of?
Cranberry juice is very high in vitamin C.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of studies proving that high dose vitamin C work as antibiotic. Okay, and if you do well, if you don't have cranberry juice, you can combine lemon juice and other stuff to have the same result. If you don't have that, okay, and there are many other herbs that you can add to it and have the same result very, very fast. Many strong herbs. More stronger than golden seal for infection. There are many herbs way stronger than golden seal to kill any infection. You know,
So
you can put a drop of oregano oil in lemon juice, and I can tell you can kill anything very, very fast than cranberry juice.
So when we have a UTI, the cranberry juice is high in tannin. It decreases the ability of E. coli to adhere to the bladder or mucosa. So it destabilizes them and causes them to flush out. So that's how it works. Okay? Okay, I don't think we can go through all of this when we do. It's so.
Okay, maybe you can do that. Oh, that's the end?
Yeah, this is the last slide, you know, because it was just too much, yes. Now, herbs of the urinary system, and then that will work, and there are many, many more. These are some of the basic ones. And there are a lot more, as I said. My favorite on there is marshmallow. I like the taste of marshmallow. It tastes so, yes, it is nice and friendly. It's not like golden seal, you know. So these are some of the basic herbs that help support the kidney when it's in trouble. As I said, herbs are not the only thing. We must start with a diet. And the fundamentals of any program that you do for any system is start with cleaning the blood. It's cleaning the blood. Cleaning the blood, once you clean the blood, you eliminate toxin, clean the cell membrane, and we use herbs as a means of support. It's not the end in all. Herbs, diet, and all of those work in conjunction in order to bring about true healing of the body along with the 8 laws of health. So we got to remember, if we have an issue and the issue is our blood pressure, we eat all the healthy food in the world and we take all the herbs in the world. And if you're not sleeping, the blood pressure is not going anywhere. So it's very, very important that it's not going anywhere. Your blood pressure is still going to be high. You must sleep. If it's a cholesterol issue, you eat every healthy food, you're not sleeping, the cholesterol is going to be high. Take all the medication. You must sleep to fix and heal the body. So the laws of health are very, very crucial, very critical in maintaining good health, and that is something that we must never ever forget when we write a protocol for any conditions. All the food you tell them to eat, all the juice they drink will not heal the body if the body has no time for repair. Okay?
So how do you put them to sleep by force?
What?
And they will put it in jail.
So we have to clean the toxin that is overstimulating the nerve.
That's why I say force. Don't force the body. You help the body to get back on track. So remove what was preventing all of this sleepiness. You know? And then you use some of the herbs that can really, like valerian, hops, lavender, lemon balm. You can mix all of these. You add a little bit of black pepper to it. You can send you to a real sleep.
What about cayenne pepper? Cayenne is as a buffer. It is a calmative and it's a stimulant. Why not?
I'll keep you awake.
It is a stimulant and a buffer on it. It's like ginger.
Yeah.
Ginger is a calmative and it also has a stimulating side. So if we use those, they would.
Would you like to come back a little bit on the cranberry juice thing? Right there. Okay. He said the tannin decrease the ability of E. coli to adverse to
adhere or hold on to.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what is tannin for those who are studying herbs?
It's in a lot of herbs. It's in sesame.
Tannin is a
chemical
principle active in many, many herbs. Okay, that's why when you don't have that cranberry, you take something else because there are many herbs that have the bark. Most of the bark have tannin in it. So when you are looking at the herbology, you can see the bark that have high level of that. So you can create a formula for that. Are you at the picture right now? So the research proved that tannin help. Now you go find a herb rich in that. You can combine 2 or 3 of them. If you can add it to this, and you can have better results, maybe faster. What do you think?
Sure. Will be better and faster. But then They might really have some serious trouble drinking it.
Drinking it, then okay. That's our problem. We like things that are palatable because when they put that stuff on a shelf, you don't know what it's become.
I understand, and I'm
That's my
not saying
problem
no.
with these things. Like, it's good. When they want to do the research, they take the fresh fruit juice and research on it.
Yeah,
They
they
don't
could.
go and take something that spent 1 year already on the shelf to work on laboratory with that. So the result you have in the paper is not the result on the shelf.
But the tannin doesn't subside, you know that. Even if you dry it, it doesn't. The tannin doesn't go away.
Yeah, but I'm talking about when they preserve this juice and
Oh.
put it right there.
Oh.
You don't know what is the preservative
Oh, you
added
mean the
to it.
cranberry?
Yeah, cranberry. The juice. You don't know what they added to it to preserve it on that shelf. You don't know all the when they what you call it, transportation, all of these things, how it's kept. Now the many things you don't know.
And that is true.
And also most of the time we go around by this thing, you don't have a result like why it doesn't work. You know the same thing they work on laboratory that you bought. You bought a degenerate, broken, like maybe expired, you know. So there are many things around. That's why when you go to buy this, you can't rely on one thing. When you read in the books, they say, okay, E. coli, this, just use cranberry, you find. Don't take that as I am good to go. Because the thing you're going to buy, you don't know how much it has been preserved. So use other things to back up, 2 or 3, then you know that you're taking a good chance.
Okay. We have any more questions? I think we have exhausted this. Not necessarily exhaust, but I think
They have been really interesting.
yeah. So what we're going to do, if there's no questions, we're going to pray and close. We're going to ask him to pray for us.
Our God which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Lord, thank you for your grace and your mercy once more towards us. Lord, we want to thank you for Sister providing Sister Corinne that can take her time to put these presentations together, and I pray that we would definitely not let them go in vain. That we'll use this information to really put together programs for ourselves, so family, friends, and really get to learn more of the living, more about our living organism as you want us to, so that we would know how to take care of it. But most of all, I ask that you help us that we can submit to you totally, that we know that it's nothing that we're doing, but it's just by your grace that we can really be healthy. But help us that we would decide right now that we will put something that we will learn into practice and not let all these good knowledge go to waste and not be utilizing them in terms of utilizing the information to help our own selves, to maintain our own health, that we can truly be the spectacle to the world. So bless us once more and continue to help us to be interested in our health, and if not for ourselves, for others, that truly God can use us mightily to bring his people back to him through the health message. So bless us once more, and I ask for your traveling mercies as we go on our way from here. Help us not to leave your presence at any point. Be with us in wherever we may go from here, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.